Welcome to Series 2 of the Waterford Sportsability Podcast, brought to you with the support of Healthy Ireland. My name is Pauline Casey, Sports Inclusion Disability Officer at Waterford Sports Partnership, and I will be joining you over the next 4 weeks as we talk to leisure facilities, national governing bodies and disability clubs and discuss all the opportunities that are available in Waterford for people with a disability. Welcome to Series 2, Episode 4 of Waterford Sportsability Podcast, Disability NGBs Meet the Team. I'm delighted to be joined by Padraig Healy, National Sports Development Manager from Vision Sports Ireland, and Joanne Wall, Irish Wheelchair Association Sport as a Sports Development Officer. You're welcome this morning, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Pauline.
Padraig, I'm going to come to you first, and I suppose NGB, we all know what an NGB is. We're working in the area. Can you just explain to everybody out there what the role of the NGB is, and then maybe what the role of Vision Sports Ireland is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the wider public will be very familiar with the larger NGBs, so the likes of the FAI and the GA, and they're sport specific, and they're the national governing bodies for that particular sport, such as Athletics Ireland and Cycling Ireland, where I suppose Vision Sports Ireland is unique in that we're a multi-sport NGB, and we promote sport and physical activity for people who are blind or visually impaired across Ireland. So I guess it's collaborating with various mainstream NGBs to promote their sports for people who are blind and visually impaired.
Brilliant. And Joanne, yourself then, you're working with Irish Wheelchair Association Sport, and will you just give a little background to that, because a lot of people might even know that it exists, as in we always talk about IWA and we don't actually realise that there's a sporting organisation that goes alongside that.
Yeah, so IWA was founded through sport. Our founding members founded the organisation from being over at the first Paralympics, and they noted the value of sport to a person's recovery or to their rehabilitation. So they had great foresight to see it way back then, the value of sport and how it can help someone. So we promote sport for young people, old people, whatever age, with a physical disability. Regardless, it doesn't have to be, although our name suggests wheelchair, it's anyone with a physical disability. So it's all physical disabilities. And
I think that's the interesting point, because a lot of times I get a call from a parent or maybe an organisation, they'd ask me, where can I go to? And I'd say, well, IWA is great to go to, would you not give them a call? I'm not a wheelchair user. So how do you break down that barrier then to let people know, well, it's not just for wheelchair users, it's for anybody with a physical disability?
Yeah, well, really, it's word of mouth, because it was founded, and our name, I suppose it's a name that has a good reputation, we'd hope. So to try continue that, but I suppose it's word of mouth, and also a lot of we have multi-sport clubs throughout the country, and those multi-sport clubs are for kids with a physical disability, age between 5-17 years, and we'd be encouraging that through your local HSC, maybe Enable Ireland, a lot of organisations, sports partnerships. We'd rely on other organisations to pass around that information, and the same way we would share the information, because really we're all looking for the same thing, and that's to get people out and physically active.
Yeah, and you mentioned something there as well when we were talking about the NGB around the importance sport has on the lives of people with a physical disability. So it's really not even about the sport, it's probably about the long-term effects that it has around independence and social skills and that as well. So is that really important in terms of Irish Wheelchair Association Sports role?
Yeah, massively important. Young people with a physical disability don't always get the same opportunities as able-bodied children in school. They may not get the same opportunities through PE, or their brothers and sisters may be going to a local GA club on a Saturday morning, and they don't have their local GA club because they may not be including them, or the sport may not be accessible for them. So it's really important that they get the same opportunities, because being physically active is so important for your health, and also for them to meet other kids who may be similar to them or have similar conditions, that they can share information and realise, oh, well, I can do that, and I can go to the Paralympics, or I have opportunities as well, and that should be the way it is. Everyone should have opportunities.
Yeah, I think everyone should have that equal opportunity. And Padraig, just for yourself then as well, you're a leading organisation, but you're multi-sport. How difficult is that?
Yeah, and I suppose how we differ from IWA Sport in that Vision Sports was established in 1988 by a group of volunteers in Dublin, and it in March 2020 we merged with NCBI, National Council for the Blind. So I suppose what we're our objective going forward is that when service users engage with National Council for the Blind, that sport and physical activity is part of the offering and that holistic service of support that's provided. And like, I guess the sport is an enormous platform, a medium for that social interaction, to promote independent living and to build social capital as well. And I guess, you know, people can, from that can come employment, can come friendships, can come confidence, and all these things stem from sport. So since we've merged with NCBI, that's a huge priority of ours, is building an infrastructure across the country that our members can access. So whether that's to go walking, to go tandem cycling, to play tennis, to play blind football, or you know, and so on. So I guess it's for us, we're a very small organisation, but since we've merged with NCBI, we're growing, and there's lots of exciting projects coming down the line where we'll have that broader reach across the country for adults across the life cycle and kids.
And can you see a big change, Padraig and Joanne, maybe over the last even 5-6 years in terms of the amount of offerings that are now available? You know, when we look back and see there might only been 1 or 2 opportunities, but I think in the last number of years things have definitely changed and the opportunities have increased. Have you seen that internally in your own organisations?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one first. Yeah, I guess I suppose the national sports policy and the national governing bodies now having a remit for disability sport has really been a game changer within the sector. And what it has allowed us to do is when we approach a national governing body, that they're willing to engage with us. So whether it's Tennis Ireland, whether it's Cycling Ireland, the FAI, that when we engage with them, they want to work with us, and that's hugely positive. And I guess our name, our brand may not be as well known as those bigger NGBs. So we want to work with them to get the message out there for people who have a vision impairment. And I guess the big thing is, like, it depends on the type of diagnosis or the type of vision impairment a person may have. Some may be playing mainstream sport, in their younger years, but their eyesight may be deteriorating then as they move into adulthood. So in some cases, it may be sort of later in life where they require the additional support of Vision Sports Ireland. But then if you take, say, macular degeneration, which is an eye condition where people are sort of, it's age related. So again, that's older adults who acquire their vision impairment, and at that stage, and we want them to engage with us and how we can support them to continue to be engaged in that physical activity.
Is that difficult though, Padraig, when someone might acquire a disability as opposed to being born with a disability? And Joanne, the same. Like, how do you get them to nearly accept that they have a disability and that actually this organisation can actually benefit me or help me move forward? Yeah,
well, I suppose for a lot of our members, if they acquire a disability later in life, it can be beneficial because they possibly already have engaged in physical activity and they realise the benefits before they acquired their disability. So they now want to continue that interest they have in sport, or they know physical activity is going to benefit them. Sometimes when you're born with a disability, because you haven't been given those opportunities, like someone who's able-bodied, it's harder to, I suppose, realise the benefits because you're not getting the opportunities. So unfortunately, it's kind of a catch-22. If you're not given the opportunities, you can't feel the benefits. Like, I mean, I mightn't always want to go for a run, or I mightn't always want to go and do a bit of exercise, but afterwards I feel amazing. Like, if you're not going to do it, going out, it's very hard to encourage yourself, but once you've done it, you feel great. So it's hard to kind of, I suppose, get people to experience that, to really, to know it.
And even on that point as well, like the mainstream population, some research done by Dr. Stephen Behan in DCU, showed that 1 in 4 kids can't run properly. So there's huge, I suppose, issues around the physical literacy capabilities of kids. So that's amplified within children who have a disability. So there's a huge gap there in relation to kids developing those fundamentals of jumping, catching, the hand-eye coordination, and that's irrespective of whether they're a wheelchair user or whether they have a vision impairment or an intellectual disability. And I suppose that's an area, and that's the benefits. And sometimes it's the parents can be the barrier that, maybe they're, I suppose, protecting their child by not allowing them engage in certain activities. But from an independence moving through their life cycle, it's hugely important that they're developing that skill set and building the strength and the core stability, because as they move into adulthood and into becoming an older adult, the independence that will provide them, and the lesser supports that they'll require from the people around.
And you mentioned barriers there, Padraig. So particularly over the last maybe 18 months, 2 years, what barriers were there that prevented you from engaging with your members or providing those opportunities?
Yeah, I tell you, from a Vision Sports perspective, it actually created an opportunity. We introduced an online exercise series, and the response was enormous, because one of the huge barriers which our members have is transport, and it's getting to places for the activities. And we introduced yoga, nature mindfulness, boxercise, and a range of classes. And the feedback was that people were able to click in from their own home, and build relationships. So that's been I guess a huge learning for us as an organisation, because it's very difficult when you have a small team and you're a national remit to have programs in every town, in every city, in every village, and then when the transport infrastructure isn't what we'd like it to be, well, and that's just a challenge that we encounter. So we were very much, I suppose, delighted with the response from the online series, and it's informed us going forward, and that's something that we're going to continue to engage with post-COVID.
So it actually gave you a great opportunity and probably gave you a better platform, something you would have never looked at before if we weren't in the situation we were in. Absolutely, and we engaged with people who would have, I suppose, considered themselves non-sporty, and they engage with the yoga, and they engage with the nature mindfulness, and now they're part of the Vision Sports family, and they're being kept up to date on other activities. So hopefully that'll be the platform or the stepping stone for them to engage in more programs, in-person programs going forward. So, however, contrary to that, it has been a hugely challenging time for people who are visually impaired. There's been enormous amounts of isolation, people, not being able to leave their home because of the transport infrastructure not being in place for much of the pandemic, and again, just even the sharing of cars, and how I guess that they're reliant on sighted guides and all of that. So it's been a hugely challenging time. So we're welcoming the easing of restrictions for our members, and we're looking forward to continuing to engage with them online, but also meeting them in person. And for the European Week of Sport, it's been hugely uplifting. We've had a golf session in Portlaoise, we had vision impaired rugby, the launch of that program in Dublin, and we had a track day motorsport experience in Mondello Park. So it's just been really encouraging to meet people again, and interact with those members that we've engaged with online for the last 18 months, and have the opportunity to meet them in person. Yeah, that sounds brilliant. And Joanne, what about IWA Sport? Are you in a similar situation where it nearly benefited you? What's your situation looking like?
Yeah, it very similar in some ways to what Padraig is saying, that we engage with some members we'd never or hadn't previously engaged with us before, and we also had to think outside the box. So it was good for us to see that it's not just maybe what we had been doing. We kind of had to open our eyes a bit and go, right, how are we going to make this work? So we did a youth leadership program with, and half of the people who took part in that had never engaged with us before. So it was kind of, I suppose, looking at not necessarily sport as in the doing, but maybe the planning for after. I suppose the negative for us in lockdown was that we've multi-sport clubs throughout the country, and a lot of those multi-sport clubs now will need a lot of support to get back going again. Some of the young people that were in the clubs have now got to the age where they're too old for the club, so they're moving on. So we need to look at ways of keeping them engaged. Again, maybe looking at new opportunities for them. How can we support them? Maybe what's there already is not for them. But so yeah, unfortunately, we're a small organisation, or not an organisation, but the sports side of it, there's not many of us. But we kind of look forward to getting back, because that's what we're used to. But I think we'll all have to keep a bit of the online stuff. It has been beneficial too.
It's just a different platform and a different way of engaging. And I suppose there's definitely a huge piece of work to be doing around clubs and trying to get them back up and running. They're probably one of the only groups that hasn't got back to anything yet, particularly because a lot of the clubs will be indoors, Joanne, am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And hall space has probably become limited, and amongst other difficulties that are there because of COVID.
Yeah, so some of our clubs went back outdoors. So I suppose it was getting a suitable outdoor space, but because a lot of our halls would be in schools, that was also a problem because schools didn't want other people coming in with COVID, which is reasonable. But I suppose now with some restrictions easing, we hope that most of our clubs will be back before Christmas. If not clubs, that they'll be back. Young people will have the opportunity to take part in some form of sport, whether it be wheelchair basketball. We will be starting back with our league, so that we will be engaging with them as best we can. And looking for opportunities to engage with them.
Yeah, okay. And I suppose coming back to then, more locally as opposed to nationally then as well, what kind of programmes or opportunities are available here in Waterford that you're familiar with, or what clubs are here? Or if I'm from Waterford and I have, if I'm blind or have a visual impairment or have a physical disability, where do I go?
Yeah, so I guess from a Vision Sports perspective, we've a number of projects in the pipeline. One being a Vision Sports awareness training. So that's going to allow us to recruit volunteers and vet volunteers to I suppose create that network of support. Okay, so that's something we'll be looking to promote here in Waterford. Like there's over 1,400 people with a vision impairment in Waterford. Less than 5% of them would have no vision. So some participants would have be very independent, and others would require additional support. And then across the southeast, there's over 3,000. So I suppose what I'd be anyone who has a vision impairment to engage with Vision Sports Ireland, to contact us. Our contact details are on our website, and over the coming months and years there'll be more programs at a local level. We're collaborating with Cycling Ireland to develop a tandem pilot training course, so that'll allow us to have tandem pilots in every county, along with linking with the LSPs and bike rental companies to signpost people to tandem bikes. We're collaborating with Athletics Ireland around guide running, National Register of Guide Runners, and similarly with Get Ireland Walking, establishing a walking group in every county, and again linking with guides and so on. So there's lots of programs coming down the line. So what I would say to anyone in Waterford or in the southeast who has a vision impairment or knows someone with a vision impairment is to contact Vision Sports Ireland, and we'll certainly keep them updated, and that'll allow us then identify where the clusters of people are and identify what programs and interests people have.
Brilliant. And Joanne, what about IWA?
Yeah, so they can get in contact with myself and we can help signpost them. We have the Dacia Dragons Club here in Waterford, but I suppose we need a bit of help to get them back up and running. Waterford Sports Partnership, Pauline or Rachel will signpost you to any other activities. We will have wheelchair basketball happening in November. If there's something in particular you want information on, there's no problem. We can get in contact if we have enough. We'll get something going down here, but we're always happy to work with Sports Partnership and any other organisation to help get people out and get active.
Brilliant. Joanne, Padraig, thank you very much for your time today. That brings us to the end of our podcast series 2. So I hope everyone's going to enjoy that one. So thank you.
Thanks, Pauline.
That concludes Series 2 of our Waterford Sportsability podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this series and found it informative and beneficial. If you require more information on anything that was discussed over the last 4 weeks, please check out our website at www.waterfordsportspartnership.ie or contact me, Pauline Casey, on 076 110 2682.